Hey everyone, it's JC. So today, part of my vlogs, I'd like to talk a little bit about something that I've done in life before, and it might help people who are kind of going into this type of career in the future. So I'm talking about teaching English as a foreign language. So I'm from America. I have a book published on Amazon, Beyond the Obscure. Please check it out. I always say it's important to share things. So even if you don't want to buy from me ever, if you share it and some people on your wall see it, they might get it. And that's the whole point of sharing. So that's very important for me. Today, though, I wanted to talk about teaching specifically English in Asia. And I taught English in South Korea, in China, and in Japan. And there are similarities and there are differences. And I wanted to talk a bit about that today. So first of all, I taught in Korea, and that was back in 2007, if I'm not mistaken. I got the job because, well, I had finished film school and university before that, actually. That's the thing, like, they do ask you for a 4-year degree. It's not always the case, but a degree gets you a long way. So, yeah, I had my degree, I had my diploma from film school, and I couldn't, that was in Canada. I really couldn't find any work in Canada whatsoever in my field. So I had to do something, and the only thing I could do is teach English. I have pretty good English, I think. I have good control of the language. So I'm like, why not? How hard can it be? And so I applied to a company in Korea, which I will say the name later because it's not important at the moment. But anyway, I applied to them, and initially I applied for one thing, but then I realized much later on, already after my flight was booked, etc., that they had moved me to a kind of subsidiary company there, and I had really no choice because it's either that or nothing. So hey, I took it. So what was the difference between the two places? Well, the difference was the one that I applied for was more for kind of late teenagers and adults. And I think maybe late teenagers, like we're talking about 17, 18, 19. That's great because I wanted to work with children who are of that age. The company that they put me with instead was mainly kids. Like I'm talking like 4 or 5 year olds, 6, 7, that kind of thing. And for me, working with these kind of kids has always been tough. Okay, so that's just me personally. Maybe you have a different preference, and that's fine. Uh, the company I worked with was CDI, and they're pretty big in Korea. I think even still today. But the one they put me with, though, was CGI April, and CGI April is for children. So if you're in contact with those guys, just be careful that they don't change your contract midway through the negotiations, and you end up with something you don't want. So be careful with that. Moreover, what happened to me there was uh, the initial boss I had there, she got replaced on day one when we started work. And basically, the lead assistant teacher took over. And she really did not like men or something. She had a problem with men. I don't know, maybe she's a feminazi or something like that. But she really did not like me one bit, okay? And my classroom had certain things not working in the beginning. For example, the projector thing, which is a kind of a big part of the lessons, well, that didn't work for a long time. So I did the teaching the traditional way, the only way I know, being by the board and writing things down and trying to encourage speaking and listening, etc. So like you're supposed to be teaching. The way that they teach is nonsense. Like you just watch beautiful slides on the projector. The students repeat something they see on the screen like a machine, and that's it. And that for me is not teaching. I totally disagreed with that method. I didn't make it like overtly clear, but I'm saying to you right now that I don't agree with that type of teaching. It's basically companies who just take the money and they don't really do anything. So yeah. So Now, specifically talking about the differences between teaching in Korea, China, and Japan. So, what you have to understand is you have to be very, very careful the contracts that you sign. Read them again, and read them again. Make sure that you read the fine print, etc., because they will try to screw you if you don't read that fine print. And then they're going to say, well, it's there, you see, you didn't read it, so it's your fault. And, that's fair enough, I guess. So, the things to understand, remember here, is that in Korea, generally, you get, for a language teacher, I'm talking about just kind of a language school, okay? Usually the average is about 2,000 bucks per month. But the big advantage, though, is that they do pay for your accommodation. So that's a big worry that you don't have, a big headache you don't need to have there. So that's nice. In China, the salary is generally much lower, but they also provide you with free accommodation, and it's going to be a nice room. Okay, I'm not talking about some kind of like tiny room somewhere where you're going to be cramped for the rest of your stay there. No, not at all. This is going to be a very, very nice, at least one bedroom apartment. So you'll have a separate room for the kitchen, etc. In Japan, though, my general experience is that again, the salary is about 2,000 bucks a month, but they do not provide you with accommodation here. So you have to, that comes out of your paycheck. And so immediately your 2,000 bucks becomes 1,500 bucks a month, right? Because you have to pay the rent. And that just doesn't make it a very appealing proposition. It's true that people who come to Japan specifically often come to Japan with other things in mind. So maybe for them, the teaching gig is like a 1 month, and then they do their other work like in IT or something like that. That happens all the time. So be careful. Be careful when you come to Japan, because here most likely they will not pay for your accommodation. What regards health insurance, well, I don't know in China, because honestly I was never sick there. I don't know how I did it, but I was never sick, so I never needed it. I think the workplace provided me with some kind of coverage, but I'm not entirely sure. In Japan, again, I'm not entirely sure, because I've barely had to use it. But the times I did use it, yeah, it was really cheap. But in Korea, it was like super cheap. I'm talking about going to a doctor costs like maybe $2.50. That's it. You get your medicine after the visit. It's another $3 or $4 or something like that. So basically, 5, 6, 7 bucks, you're done. The other cool thing about Korea was the taxis were really, really cheap. I actually used to take the taxi to go to work and back. Per day, it cost me about $6. I didn't know how to use the train there. I didn't know how to use the bus. It's so confusing. It's all in Korean, so yeah. In Japan, taxis are more expensive. You can't do what I did in Korea. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say here. Just be careful. Read your contracts, like scrutinize your contracts. It's so important that you don't get screwed later. If you have any kind of questions or you'd like to know something more, please drop a comment below. I will try to reply as soon as I'm able. But those are kind of the general rules about teaching English in kind of the language schools. I'm not talking about like university or something college like that. But in China, though, the salary is pretty low, so watch out for that. The Chinese salaries are very low. I think at the time I worked there, I was paid something like 800 bucks per month, which in China is decent money. But unfortunately, when you get out of China and go back to the States, for example, then immediately you realize that the 500 you saved a month because you have to buy food, etc. So let's say 500 a month is really not worth a lot of money back in the States, so do be careful. Again, if you have any questions, drop a comment and I'll get to it as soon as possible. Thanks for watching.